Good morning. Good morning. We are going to call this hearing to order. We're going to begin. Judge Westbrook, if you could stand and raise your right hand. I'll administer your oath. Do you swear to affirm, as the case may be, that the information you will provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God, or under penalty of perjury. You may have a seat, and you can offer us your opening statement, and then we'll move to questions.
All right, good morning. Chairs Winfield and Statstrom, Vice Chairs Flexer and Quinn, Ranking Members Fishbein and Kissel, and honorable members of the Judiciary Committee. My name is Dawn Westbrook. It is an honor and a privilege to appear before you today. I thank Governor Lamont for nominating me to serve as a judge on the appellate court. And I would also like to express my gratitude for the immense amount of support I've received from my family, Thai, friends, colleagues, judicial staff, supporters, many of whom are here today. When my 4 children were much younger, they are all adults now, I would often consult with them whenever I needed to speak to an audience. And I'd give them credit as my speechwriters, and I'd feed, clothe, and house them as payment, of course. But what they would say, while often comical, was often a source of inspiration for me. So I asked my speechwriters on this occasion, what should mommy say to the committee? Well, now that they are all adults, they're just not as funny anymore, but they are still a source of inspiration. And the younger 2 did want me to tell you that they are the best daughters in the world. So they haven't completely lost their comedic touch. But today, I am here to tell you who I am. And I think one way to do that is to share with you what I have contributed, and just as important, why I have contributed. I grew up on the west side of Dayton, Ohio, raised by my mother, Joanne Gay, who would graduate from college and become a public school teacher while I was a young child, and would eventually be employed in leadership roles for the teachers' unions with both the Ohio Education Association and the Teachers Education Association. She is here today. Like many Americans, I grew up in a community of poverty, a community of color, where people often didn't trust the law. And often their only experience with the law was in response to something happening to them, an eviction, a child protection action, a criminal investigation, the loss of a job, issues with the education system. So I grew up in an environment where there was skepticism, mystery, and a general distrust of the law. And so I was first attracted to the law because I learned that it was one of the greatest tools to resolve injustice. I learned that there were rules in place to ensure fairness. And in fact, these rules were written. And so when I graduated from high school, I had the privilege to attend on a full scholarship Fisk University, a historically Black college in Nashville, Tennessee, where I enrolled with the intention of becoming a broadcast journalist. But while at Fisk, I learned a great deal about civil rights, feminism, and LGBTQ rights. And as I began my studies, I was particularly drawn to philosophy, the study of logic and reasoning. I quickly changed my goals and majored in English and philosophy. So when I graduated from Fisk University, I went on to attend the Vanderbilt University School of Law, also in Nashville, Tennessee, where I embraced public interest law, interning at such places as the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under the Law in Washington, D.C., and the Women and Family Law Center in New York City. Throughout law school, I was employed as relief staff at a local YWCA domestic violence shelter, where I slept overnight many weekends, answering calls of women seeking shelter as a result of intimate partner violence. During that same time period, I worked for one season for a court-ordered program for intimate partner violence offenders called PEACE, Project to End Abuse Through Counseling and Education, reflecting my desire to comprehensively understand the needs of those who have been victimized and the importance of attempting to rehabilitate and address the root causes of those who had offended. One of my first legal jobs was at the Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities in 1997. I next worked for the law firm of Williams and Pattis in New Haven from 2000 to 2003. And eventually from 2003 to 2009, I worked for myself as a solo practitioner, where I had a special public defender contract in Hartford, Manchester, Meriden, and I served as a juvenile contract attorney in Middletown and New Britain. During my time in private practice, I tried over 20 cases to verdict. I spent much of my time and energy representing individuals during some of the most challenging times in their lives and dealing with some of the most socially contentious issues our nation has grappled with. And while today I have emphasized my legal employment, I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't share with you the many other employment experiences that have enriched me. I have been working since I was 14 years old. I have been a tour guide, a waitress, a cashier, a retail clerk, and held many other jobs that have shaped who I am. For the past 14 years now, I have had the privilege of serving the people of Connecticut as a Superior Court judge. During that time, I have served in a number of courthouses and various divisions in the branch. I am currently assigned to the Hartford Court for Juvenile Matters, and since 2021, I have served as the Chief Administrative Judge of Juvenile Matters. I have also served on numerous committees during my tenure. I currently serve on the Judicial Review Council, the Judicial Media Committee, and as Chair of the Judicial Education Committee. It is these lived, professional, and judicial experiences that have brought me here today. And today, as I tell you who I am grateful for your consideration of my nomination, and I welcome any questions you have for me.
Thank you very much. Senator Kissel.
Thank you very much, Chairman Winfield. Judge Westbrook, great to see you and congratulations. Not often do we have nominees that can pack a room like you have. And especially, you know, and again, walking in here and seeing people happy and celebratory is unusual, frankly. And just the fact that you have garnered that much support for what you've done in your career speaks an awful lot about you. And I'm just flabbergasted a little bit that one of your jobs during your career path was special public defender, and you went to a lot of different jurisdictions. But I was a special public defender for a number of years in North Central Connecticut, and I don't see a lot of nominees coming through that had that background. So that's comforting to some extent, but certainly your experience much vaster than mine. And I did work with the YMCA, and you worked with YWCA, so all good things as far as background. The part that I'm concerned with is we're losing you from the regular system. And recently you've had extensive experience with the juvenile court system. And so I'm just wondering, what can we hold on to from your experience in the juvenile court system? In particular, I've spoken to some of our state's attorneys that work with the juveniles, and I think it's mistaken that the public feels that all the state's attorneys just want to throw the book at these young people and just ratchet everything up to adult court. I think that these folks are grappling with how can we turn all these young people's lives around? Not always males, but quite often. So I'm just wondering, what can you tell us about those recent experiences when you've been at the helm of the juvenile system?
Well, I can say, first of all, that Connecticut General Statute 46B 121H actually sets out the goals of the juvenile justice system. And this body, legislatures, you all created that statute, and it sets out sort of 11 goals, but even the preamble says that individualized supervision, promoting efforts to keep youth in their communities, designing programs that are designed to prevent reoffending. So I'd say continuing with sort of some of what the actual goals of the juvenile justice system are. And again, there are 11, I can read them if you want, but they're all surrounding sort of efforts to do that. And I do think that we've been moving in that direction, and I just hope that we continue to move in that direction.
And to follow up along those lines, you know, one of the things that Senator Winfield and others on this committee are intimately involved with is JJPOC, Juvenile Justice Policy and Oversight Committee, trying to use data and to have data drive the policy of the state of Connecticut. And I was just this week on the opening of a new group, a council regarding domestic violence, and we want to, in many respects, emulate what JJPOC does and be data driven. And it's my belief that in many ways, when we are data driven, and it's not Republican or Democrat, that we can become national leaders. How do you feel about the direction that our juvenile justice system is going in Connecticut? And before we elevate you to the appellate court, what can we glean from your life's experiences on the Superior Court level?
Thank you for the question, Senator Kissel. So as you know, the Juvenile Justice Policy and Oversight Committee was created in 2014. And so that enabling statute requires that a Superior Court judge for juvenile matters sit on that committee. And so I'm one of like 42 people And it's a great committee because it has stakeholders, the state's attorneys are there, public defenders, it has legislators, it has all of the people who, and it has youth and parents. So all of the individuals who are, have something to some insight into programs, something to offer, something to gain. All of those bodies are at the table. And as I think there's often spirited discussions about what we should do and how we should do it. But it is, as you said, data driven. A lot of times, if you go back and look at some of the JJPOC meetings, what you see is a lot of data. So we're always evaluating things that are put in place and seeing how they're working, seeing if there are better practices. We're also always searching, not just nationwide, but all over the world. Issues in juvenile justice system are not necessarily unique to the state of Connecticut. We find that these issues occur in all of our states, but also in other nations. And so it's really, how do we respond to those issues that becomes important. So I would say we're on the right track for, making a difference in young people's lives. And I would hope that we keep on that track.
I appreciate the depth of that answer. And as we had stated prior to the beginning of this meeting, last time we were together was over at the Capitol building. I think it was the old appropriations room where JJPOC actually being led by a lot of young people as far as self-exploratory exercises, things that would define us as far as what we as individuals feel should be the goals of the juvenile justice system. And I was very impressed that you took the time to come over in the afternoon, while I know that you had judicial duties, probably here in the capital city, but took the time to come over to the working group and work with everyone. And we're going to miss you on the Superior Court level. And I know that many of my colleagues have stated some, and it's not a negative statement about any of our recent nominees or successful nominees to higher courts, but I think that you bring, by virtue of the fact that you've been in the Superior Court system, a level of experience that is extremely valuable and very hard to replicate just by studying books or the experiences of other individuals when you go to the appellate court, or maybe someday in your illustrious career, the Supreme Court. Who knows? I mean, you could be on the federal bench. I don't know. But I just congratulate you now. Well, I'm not trying to put bugs in your ear. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you any more than we already are a little bit. But I want to congratulate you. I think you're an outstanding. I'm just going to be blunt. You're grounded. You strike me as a normal human being, even with this wonderful resume that you have. I could sit down, have a cup of coffee with you. We could laugh about our kids. By the way, those two daughters that say they're the best, good for them. They have good self-confidence.
One is here. Yes.
There we go. So anyhow, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Fishbone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
I have to say that your backup, the questionnaire, your answers were the most concise, well-researched. I was very impressed. I spent a lot of time, fact checking, and reading cases. I learned something from your questionnaire, actually, a term that I had never seen before, and that's like so refreshing.
It means a lot coming from you, Representative. Thank you.
I didn't hear that, but
I said it means a lot coming from you. I know.
Oh,
I know that
thank
you scrutinize these things. And
Yes.
I appreciate it.
yeah, I do it, and I we'll get to. I did have a problem with some of it, but
Okay.
I figured I'd start good. We'll go to the bad, and then we'll end good. Anyway, yeah, full circle. So you've been I guess you were reappointed in 2017.
Yes.
Right. And your path, that you would have been beginning your second term at that time, correct?
Yes. I was initially appointed in 2009. Yes.
Yeah. So can you just go through where you've been as far
Absolutely.
as stationing and all that stuff? Cause I didn't see that in the back.
Absolutely. So in 2009, I first started at the Hartford Criminal Court, at GA 14 in the Green Court. I next went to the Manchester Criminal Court for 1 year. I was the trial judge for a portion of the time, and then I sort of heard the GA for part of the time. I then went back to Hartford, and I heard intimate partner violence, which at that time we called it domestic violence only, for 2 years. So I was in Red Court for 2 years in Hartford. I then went to Hartford Family. That would have been in about 2012. I was there for 7 or 8 months until new judges came. I then went to Hartford Juvenile. And that would have been later to 2012. I then went to Rockville as the presiding judge of juvenile, where I sat for 9 years while I was the presiding judge of juvenile. From 2017 to 2022, I was appointed to serve as the administrative judge of the entire district. So I sat on, other areas as needed. While I was also in Rockville in 2021, while I was the presiding judge of juvenile, the administrative judge of the district, I was appointed to serve as the chief administrative judge of juvenile matters for all the entire state. I left Rockville once my administrative judge term was up in 2022, and I went back to where I sit now, the Hartford Juvenile Court. So
Well,
that's sort of a.
Yeah,
history.
no, I thank you. And I did see, as I was researching you, sprinklings. And I think that, all of that stuff is very impressive. Your wide range of knowledge, not only as a practitioner, but being on the bench. It's so refreshing to see somebody who's actually, had to hold a mom's hand, a domestic violence victim, all of that stuff, being elevated to the appellate court. So, it's a great thing what I see here. In the backup, we asked you to list 10 of the most significant legal matters. And I'm at, because there's two different ones. It's the reappointment
The
nomination.
reappointment, all right.
It's question number 12.
Okay.
And we asked to list the 10 most significant legal matters you've handled as a judge and give citation if the cases were reported. Now, I know most of those, almost all of them are juvenile cases, so
Right.
that stuff is sealed for the most part.
Correct.
But can you just tell us why you selected and, well, let's start with, was it Reum, right?
Right.
That
So-
was the first one that you listed. Why did you find that to be significant?
So I think what I did, if I can put it in perspective, that was 2017. So that was a reappointment, and I probably would have additional cases to list at this point, but I would have said room because you actually can, I guess, find the decision and actually read it. So again, juvenile court proceedings are confidential, so the decisions aren't published usually. So room would have been a case that you would have been able to read. Room, if you've taken a look at it, is about a case where it was a divorce case, and during the course of the divorce, the husband had $1 million lottery ticket that he did not disclose. And so the wife sort of figured out that something was going on, and hired an investigator. And so we had a trial. But I listed it, I guess, because you could actually read a decision that I'd written, but I also thought the facts were very interesting, and the legal part of it, because really it was largely a credibility determination. I believe if you've read the decision, that what the husband said was that he had a deal with his son, who's not of the marriage, and his sister, that if ever he won the lottery, that they were going to split it a certain way. So he only had gotten a small portion. Those individuals didn't show up at the trial. I didn't find it to be credible. And so, I awarded the wife a significant portion of the earnings, which I guess he kept in a safe deposit box through the divorce. So that would be why I listed that one.
So, and I don't know, do you or did you follow the history of that case? What happened after
So
that?
I do understand that there was an issue with the marshal, and I followed a little, but not really. No.
Okay,
Yeah.
because it was interesting,
Yeah.
they did a bank execution, and then
Yeah.
there was a motion for, or there was an action for restraining order. and it went to the appellate court and all this stuff, and all through your ruling, superseded everything. And that was also, in your backup, you recognize that it's not the role of the appellate court to overturn those kinds of
Right.
things. Credibility is not before the
Correct.
appellate court, and you correctly, in my opinion, note that in your backup. The other cases, and I do agree that I was able to read that, follow that through, all that stuff. The Cassandra C case was a OTC,
Yes.
and
Yes.
why did you find that to be significant?
It, it was sort of, so if you're familiar with those facts, we had a 17-year-old who had, I believe it was leukemia. She had a terminal illness that could have been treated. And her mother and her argued that on religious grounds that she was going to refuse the treatment. So I was faced with, do I remove a child, 17-year-old, and put them in DCF's care and require them to have the treatment? I did. I signed the OTC, but I actually, in that case, I don't know if you know more facts about that case, but
I read it.
yeah, other than that, I have a lot more information about that case that perhaps isn't necessarily publicly disclosable. But one of the interesting things in that case was, so the young lady ran from, she was in DCF's custody, and I believe she was handcuffed at a hospital, and she was receiving the treatment. But there was a period of time that for some reason she was able to get away. And as you know, in all juvenile cases, the child is appointed an attorney. She was communicating with her attorney, and no one could find her. So we had to have a hearing. The Department of Children and Families, I believe, filed a motion to contempt, asking that I order the child's attorney to disclose her location and turn over text messages. So the reason I put that case down was I just thought that was an interesting thing, because you have two sort of legal concepts and you have to figure out which one you're going to prioritize. I don't know if you know what I did, but ultimately I did not order the attorney-client privilege, is the attorney-client privilege. I did not order the attorney. He did not have to turn over the information to the Department of Children and Families. She was communicating with him, and I believe he may have actually known where she was. She was eventually found and finished the treatment. And
it's another refreshing, because you follow the law, right? I mean, DCF is the government, and I mean, I'm not saying that the judges don't follow the law.
no,
but-
no. I appreciate that, because that was what you're struggling with, because you know that there's a 17-year-old out there, and but this was, that privilege is so important. And I wanted her to be able to continue to communicate with her lawyer too. And I don't recall how they got her back. She has since passed away, not of that.
Yeah. And interesting that at some point the system seemed to throw up its hands, because they took away the DCF oversight and the child was put back into mom's care. Not through you. Went through two other judges, but interesting. So, you are a refreshing candidate, to me at least, to go up. But and you seem like perfect, right? But
Thank you. Where's Representative Fishbein?
well, I'm setting you up.
Yes.
The appellate or Supreme Court nomination questionnaire is an important document. And, we as lawyers, because you are out there in the field, judges and legislators, we are professional readers and writers of words, right? So I will, point out, I'm not perfect. I totally admit it, but I was a little concerned about there was misspellings and grammar issues. So
And so let me, can I?
Yeah,
if I
sure.
can't, but right. So, your last question, who reviewed this? So no one reviewed this. And you might notice that I pretty much turned this in, I think the day after it was requested, and it's a fillable document where you can't use spell check. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm used to spell check. I later looked at it, and if you want, we can go over. I spelled the word separate wrong. I always do that with an E or A, and I don't even know if you caught that one. I probably spelled colleague wrong. I will say that if I'm so fortunate to be confirmed, that there will be clerks and there will be spell check and all kinds of vetting. So while I apologize.
One second. This hearing has a little bit of levity to it, but I just want to conform to the way that we normally do things. We don't really do clapping and all of that stuff. So
All right.
I don't want to hear about it later. Thank you.
All right, so I will say, I will acknowledge that I did see some errors after I turned this in as well. I apologize and own that. But hopefully I think you still understood what I was communicating when I did provide the responses.
yeah, I'll tell you, that is the correct answer. I mean, 'cause I have the Gen Xers in the office, and I can always tell that they rely upon the spell check, because the one thing you can't spell check is file names.
Mhm,
So I get misspelled file names all the time.
yeah,
So I got it. I'll tell you, I'm a fan. I don't know if I just created a conflict if I ever appear before the appellate court in the future, which I will tell you, I love to go before the appellate court,
Okay.
because it is so great to go to a panel of jurists to talk about a case that you were immersed in, that you lived, right?
Mhm.
And you're sharing that life, as lawyers and practitioners. And, that exchange, I have always loved going to the appellate court. Thankfully, I haven't been there in a few years. But I will tell you, I would love to go there and be before you. So, but thank you, and, congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Osborne.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Judge Osborne. Thank you so much for being here and congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
I am especially pleased to see your nomination and somebody with your background before us today. As you may know, our career paths have tracked. I was in juvenile court right after you were in juvenile court in the exact same juvenile court panel, and I was really happy to see somebody with practicing experience as well as especially family court experience when you were on the bench. And I'm grateful to that, because I do think that that type of experience is really, really important on the bench, and especially at the appellate level as well. And I'm not going to say that I'm as thorough as Representative Fishbein is in the underlying documents, but I did have the opportunity to read a number of the decisions that you wrote, and I was impressed with your organization, your reasoning, your structure, great decision writing. And as a practitioner, they were very easy to follow, and I really appreciated that. So I'm very happy to see your application before us today. And there was one question that it's something that's on my mind as a practitioner right now. And I just wanted to bring it to you as a question. It was on, and it's about family law ultimately. On question number 6 on your appellate or Supreme Court nomination questionnaire dated October 2023. And that was, you said, the question was, do you think the Supreme Court ever got it wrong, or in what cases, and what did they get wrong and why? And to paraphrase, you say, as a lower court judge, it's kind of not your place to say they got it wrong, but to apply the law. I'm bound to uphold and follow the decisions of the Supreme Court. And there's been so this month, there was a Harvard professor, her name is Claudia Golden, and she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in economics for her work in gender pay equity, the pay equity gap. And essentially what she found in this work, for which she was awarded the Nobel Prize, was that in the past, differences in pay and labor force participation may have been driven along a biological line, but the differences in pay and labor force participation cannot be attributed to biological differences at this point, but to the division of unpaid caregiving and household labor between heterosexual couples. In the past, it could be blamed on educational attainment and occupational choices, but now the bulk of current earnings gaps between men and women are in the same jobs, and they're mostly realized after the birth of the first child. And that's an important thing that's just happened in the world, in my opinion, in the world of family law, because, her work goes on to show that, that pay gap not only worsens for women as time goes on, even if they remain fully employed because of the childcare duties and the mommy tracking, so to speak, that happens, but that men's income actually increases as women step back. Men get to step forward because they don't take on those responsibilities. And I'm going to tie this in, I promise, to family law and to your questionnaire. So I promise, Mr. Chair. So in 2014, there was sort of a sea change in the way that alimony is awarded in the state of Connecticut. And it wasn't done by this legislature. It was by a Supreme Court case called Dan versus Dan. And Dan versus Dan decided that when there is a substantial change in circumstances, which is what we base modifications of alimony on in this legislature and supposedly in the court, that when there is a substantial change in circumstances, there can be a modification of alimony upon, proper application and a hearing. And Dan versus Dan decided that there can't be an upward modification of alimony for the recipient spouse if the only substantial change is an increase in the payer's spouse's income. And Dan versus Dan, that holding was based on their assumption that the recipient spouse's efforts are no longer impacting the payer spouse's income. Well, we now have empirical data from Professor Golden's work that says that's not true, that the work of the recipient spouse affects not just the earning today, but well on into retirement for the payer spouse. So now that we know, we have empirical data that supposition that Dan versus Dan was based upon is, at first blush at least, incorrect. I'll come back to your question, which was even when you think that there is a Supreme Court case that is incorrectly decided, you are bound to uphold that law. Would that hold true at the appellate court level? I understand you're not here today for the Supreme Court, but would that hold true when you are faced with empirical data that says that the Supreme Court case got it wrong?
Thank you for the question, Representative Osborne.
It was
And-
long. Thank you.
Yes, no, and I did actually read Dan versus Dan after our conversation, and I took a look at, the Nobel Peace Prize winner. Yes, consistent with my answer, unless the Supreme Court overturns that decision or the legislature creates a law that's different, then I'm bound by what the Supreme Court has said. Your reference sort of to outside social science data it's not appropriate. If there's a Supreme Court precedent that's right on point, as a lower court sitting judge, I'm obligated to follow that precedent.
So just as a follow-up to that point, if you as the appellate court are upholding the Supreme Court at that point, it's very unlikely that that case is going to get up to the Supreme Court to be overturned by the Supreme Court then, correct?
Yes,
And that would leave only the legislature to step in and right the apparent wrong, correct?
I can't see any other way. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative O'Day, followed by Representative Doucette, and Representative Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And as a trial lawyer, I don't like the appellate court, unlike my ranking member. I don't like the Supreme Court arguments. I like trial court. I create appeals. But I think our paths may have crossed when I was at Halloran and Sage and you were at Williams' office in a police excessive force case, depositions or whatnot. But I just want to say that all the research I've done, and I've never appeared in any juvenile matters, but I've heard nothing but fantastic things about you. Your reputation precedes you, and everything you've answered here today has made me feel great about the governor's nomination. Truly. No, God bless. It's, he certainly got this one right, I believe. And unlike my good ranking member, who I do want to thank chairs and ranking members, this questionnaire was not always like this. This is a great questionnaire. And probably because I'm the trial lawyer, not appellate lawyer, I didn't see any of the mistakes.
I didn't either when I wrote it.
I literally didn't see it. But anyway, that's why I'm not an appellate lawyer. So, but you know, the answer to number 6, you know, I don't know if you watched the nomination for the Supreme Court Justice nominee. I had disagreed with her response because I thought there were a lot of other Supreme Court decisions that were wrong. And you pointed, your answer number 6 was fantastic. I loved your responses in virtually all of them. I carry, as the good chairs know, I carry in my pocket the Connecticut Constitution and the US Constitution. And these are the documents, other than the Bible, I think are the most important written documents. Certainly the US Constitution and the Bible, but and your responses here today have been fantastic.
Thank you.
And your humble beginnings, I think have grounded you well. I'm not going to ask, I traditionally ask my Robitis question that Justice McDonald had asked before I was ever on this committee. And I'm certain that that's not going to be an affliction you would ever suffer. I guess my one question for you, you know, Hugh Keefe, when I was on judicial selection many years ago, Hugh Keefe used to joke, let's keep the good trial lawyers in the trial court and let's hide people on the appellate court and let the Supreme Court fix their mistakes. You're gonna be missed in the trial court level, I believe, even though I've never appeared before you because of just what I've seen and heard. Do you think you're going to enjoy it? Because the appellate court's a lot different. You're kind of, you know, out away from the day-to-day operations and helping people directly. How different do you think it's going to be? And are you going to miss the trial court?
I think it's going to be different, but I think I would like the opportunity to collaborate and make decisions sort of in the aggregate. So not just one person in front of you, but now you have the ability to set precedent. You are, what you do sort of affects a larger population. I think I'm ready for that challenge. I'm looking forward to it, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you. And as proud as I am, I can't imagine how proud your children are. So
Two of them are
congrats.
behind, and my mom.
Congratulations, Mom. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Duzette, followed by Representative Walker and then Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess initially I have to say I'm a little shocked that Rep. O'Day did not use the opportunity to ask his Robitis a question. I think that really speaks volumes of our nominee today. He rarely misses an opportunity to do that. And I also forgot to ask you, we played golf a few weeks ago, whether you had your Constitution on you then. I wanted, when you did that, I was dying to know. You'll have to tell me afterwards. But in any event, Judge Westbrook, great to see you today. So great to see you today. We've gotten the opportunity to know each other. I've gotten the opportunity to know your beautiful family, some of whom is here with you today from the town of Glastonbury. Your reputation in the town of Glastonbury as a resident of Glastonbury and your family is exemplary. You're a great asset. You and your whole family are a great asset to the town. And are involved in a number of community activities and just a great asset to our town. Everyone speaks extremely highly of you. Because your questionnaire is from 2017, I wanted to give you the opportunity to share a little bit about some of your involvement in the community. And also I know some professional associations and some involvement through your position as a judge, administrative judge, some of the committees you serve on as well in a service to the profession. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about that.
So absolutely. In my actual community where I live in Glastonbury, I'm active in the MLK initiative, And I'm a host family for the A Better Chance program. So this is the 4th year I've done that. Every Wednesday, I have a student who comes to stay at my house, and he sleeps there once a month. And we do activities with some of the other host families. When my children were younger, I was, in charge of the football scholarship committee, in charge of the prom bus, in charge of Safe Grad, a number of other sort of mom things. I was active in Middletown. I was on the school readiness committee, the Middletown Town Democratic Committee. I ran for Board of Education in the town of Middletown. In terms of the community at large, a lot of the people you see behind me are from organizations that I'm very involved in. I'm a member of the Links Incorporated, which is a friendship and community service organization. We commit to doing at least 48 hours of community service. So through that, I've done things. Prior to the pandemic, I went to a nursing home once a month, and we played bingo and ate with the residents. I participate in a diaper drive. We donate backpacks and things to homeless shelters. We have a health fair each year that I participate in through my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. I've been a member since I was 19 years old when I was in college. When I came to Connecticut, I joined the chapter here, and I've done some things with them. A member of a mother's organization called Jack and Jill of America. I was actually the chair of the community service committee for a period of time. So that's in the community at large. In terms of the legal community, I am on the board of Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers, which, as you probably know, is an organization concerned about those struggling with substance use disorder or mental health issues. I recently, in the past year, helped to coordinate Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers and the Affinity Bar, so that there was sort of a webinar to let them know about this resource. Through CHRO, I participate every year in what's called Kids Court, where I judge the competition of, there's an essay competition and a speech competition. I also speak to the young people. I participated in law camp there's one at UConn and there's one in New Haven. I've done that over the years. Guest Reader Day, which a lot of judges participate in. So I've done that. Through the branch, if we want to call that volunteer stuff, I've served on the executive committee, the Client Security Fund, Judicial Media Committee, the Judicial Education Committee. Governor Lamont in 2021 nominated me to be on the Judicial Review Council. So I won't call that volunteer work, but it's not something you get paid extra for. Yeah, I think community service is important. I think giving back is important. I think as long as I'm able-bodied and able-minded to give back and to do something, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I would always hope to be visible and helpful in the community in multiple ways that I can think of. So I appreciate it.
It's so important and it's impressive. It speaks to your character. A lot of judges that I've known over the years, it's the pinnacle of their career. And then they often, the job of being a Superior Court judge or a justice of the appellate court or justice of the Supreme Court is obviously important and time consuming one. But we often see people sort of disappear or, concentrate on that job and not be as involved in the community of the profession. So I think it's tremendous. The whole town of Glastonbury is rooting for you and excited for you. One other thing, and Senator Kissel touched on this, and I'm going to agree with him that it's in a way it's a shame to lose you from the juvenile court system. But I know, again, you're not going anywhere. And I based on your last answer, I know that you will probably be around to be helpful in whatever capacity you can. But I think we had a nice conversation previously, and I think it would be helpful for the committee. And I know some of our members serve on the JJPOC, and some of us are less involved. But to talk about some of the more recent reforms, and we spent a lot of time on this committee in 2021, 2022, trying to strike the right balance with the juvenile system with some reforms. So we spoke a little bit about previously the 8-hour hold, the timeframes for arraignment, the administrative changes we made for records and communication, electronic monitoring, and then some of the new programs that are coming online. I think it would be helpful for this committee to hear,
Absolutely.
you know, how those have been implemented, what maybe we got right, because we don't always get to hear that, and what
Right.
maybe, you know, could use further.
And thank you
further
for the
amendment.
question. So some of the programs so the 2021 legislation, as you know, was huge, but some of the programs that have been implemented, first I'll go back to 2019. In 2019, this body created the Motor Vehicle Theft and Misuse Program. So it was in response to the rash of motor vehicles that really nationwide we were seeing being stolen. So that program is currently run from, well, Court Support Services Division. So if you hear me say CSSD, I'm sorry, there are a lot of acronyms in juvenile, but CSSD contracts with a program called LINK, which is linking youth to natural communities. And the LINK program actually runs the motor vehicle theft program. So if you're charged with the crime and you're a low to moderate risk offender, then you make a motion to the court. The court determines that it's in the child's best interest, and, you know, balancing that with public safety, that the matter be diverted and that you have the advantage of taking the motor vehicle theft program. The matter's then continued for 6 months to see if you successfully complete that program. To date, I think we have had about 300 go through the program with a 75% success rate. So, you know, the recidivism rate, I believe, has been about 16%. But that was a 2019 initiative. Part of the 2021 legislation, the branch CSSD, Court Support Services Division, runs risk-based case handling. So we've shifted cases in evaluating what a juvenile's risk is to the public from an offense space, not just looking at what you're charged with, but what is the risk, first of all, to the public and the community, but also your risk to recidivate. Like, is this person going to end up back? So the risk-based case handling started in January of 2023. So we have about 7 months worth of data. I think we have data up until July. And of the 3,000 some odd cases that have come before our juvenile courts, I think about 765 juveniles have been found to be eligible for the program. But what the program is it uses a evidence-based instrument. Again, another acronym is called PREDICT. And if I'm going to say PREDICT right here at a public hearing, PREDICT is prospective. It's an evaluation that was created by one of our state universities, but the PREDICT has 10 different measures, and it determines sort of what issue brought the juvenile to the court. Like, was there substance disorder? Are there issues in the home? And based on that, there's an attempt to divert the case so that it doesn't have to come before a judge, and we don't use our resources on low risk offenders. We divert the matter. A juvenile probation officer, and, you know, shout out to all of our juvenile probation officers. They do really good work. They act really as case managers in coordinating programs to address not just the youth, but they usually deal with the family. You know, these things are sort of family issues when a juvenile comes to the court. So they coordinate the juvenile with programs that are appropriate to respond to whatever brought the juvenile to the court. And the matter's diverted. Now, you have to be eligible for this. You can't already be on probation. You can't have had a case that's gone before the court before, what we call a judicial case. So there's lots of criteria built in, but it's something that's being tried, I guess, you know, nationwide. But the focus, again, is on the risk. So those are at least two of the new initiatives that, yes, we do have the 8-hour hold now, and you know, police officers have copies of the records if there is a record, so that they can determine whether or not they need to ask that an individual be detained. So I think the initiatives, to my knowledge, are going well.
That's good. It's helpful for us to hear that. Thank you for your service to the branch and the judicial system. And congratulations
Thank
on
you.
your nomination. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Rep. Walker, followed by Senator Miller.
Thank you and good morning,
Good morning.
Judge. It's a bittersweet thing for me right here because as everybody just saw, the amount of wisdom and knowledge that you bring to Juvenile Justice Policy and Operation Committee has been phenomenal. I thank you for everything you've done for our kids and that you're not going away. I know you're going to always be there, and I'm sure we'll have lots of emails and conversations, but I just think that what you have given to our kids in the short time that you've been in this position has been phenomenal. In the committee itself, you brought words of understanding of the system, but also of the understanding of the families and how we work it together. So there's nobody I could say that deserves this nomination better than you. And like many of my colleagues have said, the governor has gotten it really right this time.
Thank you very
This
much.
is really fantastic. And I look forward to seeing what other things that you're going to go in there. So I'm not asking you any questions. I just wanted to come in and say thank you for all your work.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Walker. Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Judge Westbrook.
Good morning.
I want to say congratulations on your nomination. Like my colleagues, I'm very impressed with your answers as well as your credentials. Especially your community service. You said something that it really is a biblical verse that Representative Porter quotes all the time: to whom much is given, much is required, much more is required. And so you've gotten that right? The governor's gotten it right, but you understand the importance of giving back to our community, especially our youth. And especially when you are a child of color, and I'm going to say a Black child because I am Black, but when you're a Black child and you don't have positive role models in your life seems kind of dim. And you have been a role model for our young people. When they come into your court and they see you, they know that their life doesn't have to necessarily go down the path that they're going down. So I appreciate the work that you've given back to the community, but especially that role model that you've been for our young people. Because when you and I spoke, that was really important to me, you giving back to the community. So I want to say congratulations again, but I was looking at your appellate and Supreme Court questionnaire, and I found your answer to question number 22. What United States or Connecticut Supreme Court justice from current or recent courts do you admire the most and why? And I was wondering if you could just expound on that a little.
Yes, absolutely. So I listed first Justice Thurgood Marshall, and probably to many for obvious reasons, his background. He has a civil rights background. He argued Brown versus Board of Education. He focused on individual rights, all things that, I sort of focus on. When he passed away when I was in law school, and I didn't think we gave it enough recognition because it was to me a really big loss. I've been to plays about him, read books about him, watched movies about him. I'm just, again, he's a role model. The other individuals I named were actually on our state Supreme Court. I listed Chief Justice Richard Robinson. He is the first African-American Chief Justice for the state of Connecticut. He continues to, he goes around the country and he speaks on issues of implicit bias and justice issues. I also listed former Chief Justice Chase Rogers. In 2007, before I was a judge, I remember the day I was a solo practitioner, and I remember I just had a cell phone, and she called me up and she asked me to sit on the Public Service and Trust Commission steering committee. So that was a group of about 8 people, and we went around the state holding focus groups to sort of see what the issues were regarding the judicial branch. We also helped to develop the mission statement. Her commitment to transparency, access to justice, and all of those things just has always stayed with me. I also believe I listed one of our former Supreme Court justices now, Maria Khan. She's always been approachable. I think social and emotional intellect are really important things. And I always found her just to be a person that I could actually talk to and communicate with. And there was no, the standoffishness wasn't there. So that was why I listed, those individuals to answer that question. And I don't know if others can see you, but I can't see you. So if I'm not looking at the.
Oh, that's okay. I can see you.
All
So just one last comment, just to say that it's an honor to be a part of your public hearing today. And I'm just very impressed. I was impressed with you when we spoke over the phone, and I'm super impressed, very impressed today. And to hear my colleagues feel the same way. It makes me, as a Black woman, and I'm just going to say that, as a Black woman, it makes me proud. It makes me proud to see that a Black woman is being nominated for the appellate court. And I want to thank the governor for intentionally trying to make the appellate court diverse. So thank you very, very much for even submitting an application, and thank you today. And I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Judge Westbrook. And I sincerely apologize for not being able to be there in person. I want to congratulate you and your family for the nomination, and they certainly should be proud, because after listening to the great questions from my colleagues and reading the questionnaire, it's clear you're the type of person that should be appointed to a higher court like the appellate or Supreme Court. Your life experiences and your education shaped you into a great judge. And those are the type of judges that need to be sitting in judgment of others. You're knowledgeable to me. What impresses me is you're easy to connect with and easy to communicate with. Seems effortless with you. You're a real person that is extremely intelligent and articulate, which it seems to be rare sometimes in life if someone that's so easy to talk to and so easy to connect with. Your judicial record, and I've spoken to some of your colleagues and read the questionnaire, and it just reflects a glowing opinion of you. And after the past couple of judicial public hearings we've had with nominations that stretched on for a long time and became contentious at times, it's kind of nice to have a love fest. And I want to congratulate you. I don't have any questions, but I felt it necessary to make those comments because I do believe you're an exemplary pick, and I thank the governor for nominating you.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Callahan. Representative Dubitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I will pile on to the love fest. It's nice to have a nominee that appears that everybody, or most of the people on this committee, think is a appropriate and positive influence on the courts. I did need to tell you that I'm also one of those people who always spells separate incorrectly.
Yes.
I can never tell if there's an A or an E there, just one of those things. So I commiserate with you on that one.
Thank you.
I don't believe that I've ever been before you. I know I did a lot of pro bono juvenile work, some of which was in the Rockville area, but I don't think you and I have ever crossed paths on a case. During your opening statement, you mentioned some other work that you had done earlier in life. And Senator Kissel said that he thought that you were sort of a regular person. And I agree with that. And one of my problems with a lot of judges, and frankly, a lot of attorneys, is they have not lived much of a life before joining the legal profession, and they don't understand what regular people go through on a day-to-day basis. If you wouldn't mind, can you just explain a little bit about how those other jobs that you've had in the past educate you or influence your work on the bench?
Yeah, so absolutely. I guess, I referenced that I was a tour guide, a waitress, a cashier. but as others have said, I'm also a woman of color. And so, even though I wear a robe, often, at work, I still walk around the streets as a woman of color. And, there was a point where I had 4 young children who walked around with me, and people still see me as that person, and without the authority. And so I know what it's like, I guess, to be treated differently. If you're, especially those were all sort of service roles, working as a cashier, working as a store clerk or as a tour guide. Sometimes your presence is rather disregarded, or is not really the significant part of the person's experience. So I'm just mindful of that. And I just know that it's sort of all in me, that so I mentioned it as something that shaped me. I just know that it's hard to forget those sorts of things, because it's what makes you who you are. And it's sort of how you see things. So also those were the people that I represented, usually regular, average, working class people. And so I at all times it causes you to try to see the humanity in other human beings, even when they've experienced a hardship or they're accused of something really horrible. And those are the people who serve us all the time, cashiers and store clerks. So I don't know, I just sort of see myself a little bit in all people. So, but thank you for the question.
Okay, well, I guess one of my roles on the Judiciary Committee is to ask questions and to say things that most people on the committee probably wouldn't. So I'll bring up an issue that was a little bit annoying to me in our last confirmation hearing or nomination hearing. There were people who objected to our last nominee. It appeared to me based exclusively on her race, believing that the governor should be nominating more people of color to the bench, to the higher levels of the courts, and essentially opposing somebody who most believed was a very competent and an appropriate nominee based exclusively on her color. Unfortunately, that brings up, you become the next nominee, and there could be a perception that your race had some influence on the nomination. I from my standpoint, I don't care if you were black, brown, white, green, purple, or anything, as long as you are a competent and knowledgeable jurist. Could you maybe address that a little bit about, the appropriateness of that as a consideration in the nomination and confirmation of a judge on the appellate court?
Absolutely, Representative Dubisky. While I think diversity in terms of demographics is important, I think the governor also was looking for professional diversity, for someone who had represented individual people, not necessarily companies, corporations, state, legal fictions. So I don't think that I'm just, a racial pick, so to speak. I don't know that that would be the reason for my pick. I think I offer a whole lot more than that. So, thank you.
Well, clearly you do. I've looked at your background and have listened intently on your answers to the questions and read your responses, and clearly you are a very accomplished and competent, and you're the kind of person that we need in the court system. But I would hate to think that there were those who think that you've been nominated based on the objections and the statements made in the previous nomination hearings. So to what extent do you think that a governor, any governor, should consider race as a factor when nominating an appellate court or a Supreme Court nominee?
Representative Dubisky, I'm going to cut in for a second because you've asked her opinion on race as a factor. And I would ask you to clarify what your question is, because she doesn't have a real say as a Supreme Court judge or an appellate judge in this issue.
Which is what I was going to say, if I can, just, I'm not the governor. I'm not in charge of nominations. I'm grateful for the nomination, and I certainly think I have more to offer than race. I did watch the previous hearings, and to my recollection, there was maybe only one objector whose issue was race. But that would be my answer.
All right, I'll just leave it at that. I very much appreciate your coming in. I congratulate you on your nomination, and at some point perhaps I'll be before you on the appellate court. And again, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's still morning. Good morning, Your Honor. First of all, congratulations on your nomination. And thank you for being with us today and so patiently answering all of our questions. I apologize for not being there in person with you, but I have had pre-existing commitments in my own law practice down here today. So glad to at least be able to talk with you remotely.
Thank you.
I have two questions, and I'll try to keep them brief because a lot of my colleagues have covered a lot of territory. First of all, the right to jury trial is enshrined in both our state and our federal constitutions. I know you've had experience in at least your private practice with jury trials. And I guess I would ask, in your experience and in your understanding of the law, what you view the importance of both the civil and criminal jury trial as being in our system, and to what extent it helps preserve and protect justice.
No, I absolutely think that the right, as you said, the right to a jury trial is inviolable, and it is enshrined in our state constitution, and it's in the federal constitution. I think our system of bringing issues to the public and having them decide, I guess what happened is a fair system, and it's a system I respect. When I was in federal court, jury selection was a little different than it is in our state courts. We did it by panel, and there were questionnaires. State court is a lot more involved and can take a lot longer, but I think that's what the Constitution requires, and I think it's important. And I think also our Chief Justice has, in the case State versus Holmes, has made an attempt through the task force he created to make sure as well that that sort of racial issues are dealt with in our jury selection process.
Well, thank you, Judge, and I would agree completely. I think that the jury system is vital for preserving both the appearance and legitimacy of our justice system, but also actual justice for individual litigants. As you said, bringing in ordinary people from the community provides an important perspective that we as lawyers may not always completely have on every issue. And so I think it's very important. And I agree about the importance of the Chief Justice's jury selection task force to make sure that the jury is a fair cross-section of or drawn from a fair cross-section of the community and represents a jury of the litigants' peers. And I guess, so my other question would be, it kind of corresponds with your experience as well. I clerked for a appeals court judge, and when I was doing that, I often would look at cases and kind of say, from the trial record, how did these lawyers end up doing this? How did this happen? And then when I became a trial lawyer myself and ended up in trials, I started realizing the barely controlled chaos of the trial system. And I guess I would say, first of all, how do you view the importance of good superior court or trial court judges in controlling that chaos? And also, how do you think your experience as a trial court judge will inform your work as an appellate court judge?
Thank you for the question. I think actually trying cases and serving as a trial judge for a number of years now will sort of give me insight into what led the parties to the appeal. I did have the opportunity to sit by designation on the appellate court in 2017, and I saw 3 cases. I think sort of the insight of having done the thing that you are reviewing, they're just an additional layer of insight that you can understand how counsel and the parties end up in the position they are. Trials aren't always sort of smooth, one step after the next step, and things go this way. They can be sort of messy, for lack of a better word. So I would hope that I would retain sort of my insight, and having sat as a trial judge, I would hope that I would carry that with me to any elevated court.
Well, thank you, Judge. I very much appreciate your answers and your patient responding to all of our questions today. I found both your background and your conversation with us today impressive. I agree with your comments about the importance of professional background diversity, or at least your allusion to the governor's intent with that. I think it's vitally important that that judges in our courts represent not only all the demographics of the individuals that they're judging, but also the full spectrum of professional background in the legal profession. And so I think your work, but both as a lawyer and as a judge, will equip you well to provide some of that perspective on the appellate court. And so I thank you for being with us today, and congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you, Representative Blumenthal. Representative Stastrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm going to try to wrap up this love fest and get on to a vote that it sounds like is going to be very much in question. But Judge, I do want to obviously add my congratulations and thanks to the governor for your nomination. I think certainly what you're hearing here today is an appreciation of the work you've done, both on the bench as well as in the community over these last several years. I think we've all seen, because of the amount of work you've done in this building and really across the judicial branch, your skill set, your management skills, and the asset you are to the bench. So I want to thank you. I also want to remind our staff that in the future we should schedule all judicial confirmation hearings on Fridays when everybody seems to be in a better mood. And also, I know, unfortunately, since this is an interim appointment, you'll have to be back before us in February. And if you're planning on bringing anybody else, we're going to need a larger hearing room. So 2C in February for this. But no, congratulations, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Stastrom. Fridays don't always work. I've been here long enough to know that. I'll just say this. Rep. Stastrom just mentioned 2C, and I was in room 2C 14 years ago. And you were as brilliant then as you are now. And unfortunately, the committee hearing didn't go the way that it went today, and it should have. And so I'm glad to have been there 14 years ago to come in and help make sure that you were sitting on the bench for those years to get to this point. And I'm glad that I will be able to cast my vote in the affirmative for you. Thank you for your answers. Thank you for your work. Thank you for joining us today. And with that, we will end the public hearing and commence the commit.
Thank you.
Yep. I will note for the record, no one was signed up to testify before we close the public hearing. Thank you for the reminder. And with that, we will call the public hearing to a close. You can step back. We'll commence the committee meeting. I'll give the administrator a moment to get ready. So we'll stand at ease for a moment.
Folks, excuse me.
We are, hello,
Yep.
hello. We are trying to get to the committee hearing. So if you're going to have conversations, please take them outside. We were just giving a moment for the administrator to get ready. Thank you. Okay, Madam Administrator, are you ready to go? You are. Okay, Madam Administrator, we have one item before us, which is the nomination of current Superior Court Judge Dawn Westbrook to be a judge of the appellate court and a judge of the Superior Court. Is there a nomination?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion confirming the interim appointment of the Honorable Dawn G. Westbrook of Glastonbury to be a judge of the appellate court and a judge of the Superior Court.
Okay, so the motion was made by Representative Stastrom and it was seconded by Senator Kissel. Is there discussion? Representative Fishbone.
I just have a question. If I mumble my answer to the vote the first time, do I get to vote twice? With that, I want to vote for her twice, so.
That only works in Bridgeport.
I didn't say it. Seeing no, Rep Dillon, yes.
Hi, I had no questions today, Mr. Chairman, because I couldn't be there in person, so that with the nominee separately, but I couldn't help but note that I didn't see in the audience any of her many friends in New Haven for the extraordinary service that she's given to the community over her career. And I guess I want to claim that little tiny piece. And I'm so grateful that she's been willing to do this. And thank you very much to the governor. And sometimes I do agree with the representative from Wallingford. I would like to vote for her twice. Bye.
Thank you, Representative Dillon. For the record, no one will be voting twice. Seeing no other individuals wishing to discuss the motion before us, Madam Administrator, would you please call the roll?
A roll call vote on the motion confirming the interim appointment of the Honorable Dawn G. Westbrook of Glastonbury to be a judge of the appellate court and a judge of the Superior Court. Winfield.
Winfield in the affirmative.
Staffstrom. Flexer.
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Quinn.
Yes.
Kissel. Fishbein.
Yes, yes, yes.
Blumenthal.
Blumenthal votes yes.
Callahan.
Representative Callahan votes yes.
Conley. Curry. Delaney. Dillon.
Representative Dillon votes yes, yes, yes.
Doucette.
Yes.
Dubitsky.
Yes.
Elliott.
Elliott votes yes.
Gaston.
Senator Gaston votes yes.
Gilchrist.
Representative Gilchrist votes yes.
Godfrey,
Yes, Representative Godfrey votes yes.
Hall,
Rep. Hall votes yes.
Harding,
Harding votes yes.
Hayes, Howard, Johnson,
Representative Johnson votes yes.
Khan, Labriola, Lesser,
So that's
Marr.
the sort of key thing that I'm.
Senator Marr votes yes.
Miller,
With great honor, Senator Miller votes yes.
O'Day,
Representative O'Day votes yes.
Osborne,
Representative Osborne votes absolutely and enthusiastically yes.
Havelock D'Amato, Porter, Sampson, Sims,
Representative Sims votes in the affirmative.
Beach,
Rep. Beach votes yes.
Walker,
Representative Walker votes yes.
Wilson,
Representative Wilson votes yes.
Thank you, Madam Administrator. We will hold the votes until 1 p.m. And with that, we will stand in recess until that time. Thank you for joining us today.
So hopefully you're understood with them.
Hi, Representative, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, excellent. How would you like to vote today?
Representative Conley votes yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Representative Delaney, how would you like to vote today?
Twice if I could, but enthusiastically, yes.
Thank you so much, sir.
You too, ma'am.
Representative Howard? Or Senator Lesser? Hi, Representative. Can you hear me okay? How would you like to vote?
Good morning. How are you?
Good, and yourself?
Very well. Representative Howard votes yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too. Hi, Senator. You're muted. There you go.
Hi there. Sorry. You ready for me?
Yeah, absolutely. How would you like to vote?
Senator Sampson votes yes.
All right, you're all set. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
Bye.
Madam Administrator?
Hi, Senator. How are you?
Hi,
How would you like to vote today?
I'm okay. How are you?
Not too
I would
bad.
like to vote in the affirmative.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Hi, Representative, how are you?
Well, had a hard time getting on this. I'm like, okay.
Been
I
a
would
weird
like
day
to,
with text. So how would you like to vote today?
I would like to vote in the affirmative, please.
All right, you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Hi, Representative, how are you? One second, you're muted. I can't hear you.
I would like to vote yes.
All right, you're all set. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. I just voted for a candidate
Hi, Representative. Oh, there you go.
Hi, how are
Perfect.
you?
Good, and yourself?
Very good, thank you.
Dr.
Pavlik
Smith?
Amato votes yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, bye.